Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we've got another news and rumor video to discuss. In today's video, we're looking at some signings from our past couple days, a couple pieces of news involving hardware that was one, and more players signing overseas. And we've got a couple of trade rumors to discuss involving the Rangers, the Kings, the Ducks, the Hurricanes, and a couple of other teams. We'll go to all the updates from our past couple of days. Coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we go, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. Don't forget to leave a comment. Don't forget to stay tuned for June 27th, June 28th, and July 1st live streams talking about the draft, free agency, and other things that happened on that day. So very interesting note there. But in today's video, got another trade rumor video to discuss. Trade rumors are picking up. I'll be trying to keep you guys up to date as best as I can, and definitely, like I said, I'm going to try when trades actually do happen to give you my instant reactions to those trades. But in today's video, got another trade rumors video. So as usual, we'll start off by looking at some signings for our past couple of days. So we got 3 signings here to talk about, 2 ELCs, 1 contract extension, so not a whole bunch here. The first one was in Pittsburgh, his 28-year-old UFA winger Bork-John Imama, who was signed a 1-year deal last offseason with the Pittsburgh Penguins to be a depth guy. Actually didn't do half bad. Played mostly at the AHL level, but had a goal and 1 point in 16 NHL games. Like, he actually got a couple of opportunities at the NHL level. He signs a 1-year contract extension with AV of $785,000. This isn't a bad deal in my opinion. Imama is mostly an AHLer, but he can help on the NHL group if there's injuries or things like that. So I think Imama will probably be an AHLer again next year, but I think this is a very fantastic pickup here for the Pittsburgh Penguins to get Imama on a new contract extension and keep him in the organization. So very interesting note there. Meanwhile, when it comes to the 2 ELCs, first in the Anaheim Ducks organization, they have signed center prospect, 2nd round pick in this past year's draft, 2024 draft, 35th overall, Lucas Pettersson, to a 3-year ELC with AV of $870,000. That'll begin at the start of next year. Pettersson this past year had 9 goals and 19 points in 26 Allsvenskan games, so I think eventually could be a guy who's either a bottom 6 or middle 6 center for the Anaheim Ducks, so that's a decent pickup there. And even though he won't make the NHL roster for a couple of years, I think that's a solid pickup there for the Anaheim Ducks. And then the Pittsburgh Penguins also gave an ELC to another player. They gave the extension to Imama, and then they gave an ELC to Melvin Fernstrom. Fernstrom was a right winger, 3rd round pick in the 2024 draft of the Vancouver Canucks. He was one of the pieces that the Penguins pick up in the Marcus Pettersson deal. He gets a 3-year ELC with the AV of $873,000. He's only 19 years old. He's going to be a couple of years away from getting into NHL action, but I think this is a pretty good pickup there. Fernstrom, I think, could eventually be a middle 6 winger. This past year had 8 goals and 17 points in 48 SHL games, so didn't look too out of place. And I think Fernstrom, and not next year, but maybe a year or 2 time, could be a decent pickup there for the Penguins. So those are only signings from our past couple of days. Not a whole bunch, but still, Fernstrom signs an ELC in Pittsburgh, Imama signs an extension in Pittsburgh, and Pettersson signs an ELC in the Anaheim Ducks organization. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to a couple of news updates. So when it comes to the news updates, we only have a couple of things here to talk about. So we only have 1 player heading overseas from over the past couple of days, and that is Magnus Hellberg, who was bouncing around over the past couple of years as a 3rd stringer. I know he was in Detroit a couple of years ago. I think he spent this past year in Dallas's AHL affiliate. He is signed over in the SHL, so very interesting note there. Hellberg was most likely going to be like a 3rd or 4th stringer at the NHL level this year again. Probably play limited NHL minutes, if any at all. So very interesting note there, but Hellberg is signed over in the SHL. Maybe he'll get more playing time. So very interesting note there, but Hellberg has taken his talents overseas. Then we go over to some hardware that was won. We talked about this over the past couple of days with some of these interesting things. Well, Kopitar, Eichel, and Point were all nominated for the Lady Byng trophy, so that's another interesting trophy that was yet to be awarded. And the winner of that trophy was Andrei Kopitar. I think Eichel was 2nd, Point was 3rd. I might be wrong on that. You guys can go check out the list. Just search the nominated list for Lady Byng. But Kopitar did wind up winning it. He's a very good player, so I can see why he wound up winning it. So very interesting note there. But Kopitar takes home the Lady Byng trophy. And then the last 2 trophies that were yet to be announced were won by the same players. So in the Vezina trophy conversation, you had Connor Hellebuyck, you had Darcy Kemper, surprisingly, in Los Angeles, and Andrei Vasilevsky. And in the Hart trophy nomination, you had Connor Hellebuyck as well as Nikita Kucherov and Leon Draisaitl. Now, there were a couple people out there who said that Hellebuyck could possibly win it, but it was most likely going to be Kucherov or Draisaitl. But actually, Hellebuyck won it. point. He's the 4th goaltender, I think, in the expansion era it was, or either the cap era or something like that, to win the Hart. I think he joined Jose Theodore, Dominic Hasek, and Carey Price. So Hellebuyck's an elite company. He had a great season, and it stunningly was able to beat out Nikita Kucherov and Leon Draisaitl. Well, he, no surprise, also won the Vezina for the best goaltender in the NHL. So I don't think that's too much of a surprise. Vasilevsky was 2nd, Kemper was 3rd. So I don't think anyone's too surprised as how the Vezina finished, but I do think there are a couple people out there who are quite surprised Hellebuyck won the Hart. So very interesting note there. But Hellebuyck has won the Hart, and he's won the Vezina, and then Kopitar has won the Lady Byng. So very interesting note there. Going over to a quick update involving Seattle Kraken coaching staff, and that is that they have fired assistant Bob Wood. So the Kraken have recently fired a couple of assistant coaches, so they're going to be in the market to hire some new assistants. Bob Wood, I think, has been with that team for a couple of years now. So very interesting note there. They've fired Wood. He's going to find opportunities elsewhere, and the Kraken are going to be looking for a new assistant head coach. So very interesting note there. And the last thing I want to talk about here today is a small trade. Now, this trade was not significant enough to put in its own video like it did with the Kreider one, but there was an interesting smaller level trade between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Boston Bruins. The trade is as follows. The Boston Bruins picked up the signing rights to Victor Soderstrom from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for Ryan Mast and a 7th round pick in 2025. Now, Mast is entering the final year of his ELC, so he's going to be needing a new deal next offseason. I think it was a low-end draft pick a couple of years back. He could eventually maybe challenge for like a 3rd pair role, but I think he's mostly going to be an AHLer, so it's a low-end pick up there for the Hawks. They also get an extra 7th round pick for this year's draft, which isn't overly bad. In exchange, the Boston Bruins get Victor Soderstrom. Soderstrom was a former 1st round pick of the Arizona Coyotes. At one point, he looked like a very promising prospect, but over the past couple of years, he started to go down the depth chart of the Arizona Coyotes. Last year, at the trade deadline, he was traded by Utah to the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for the Shea Weber contract as part of that deal. And now the Hawks, who didn't think they were going to be able to sign him and give Soderstrom a good opportunity to play at the NHL level, have given him to Boston. It sounds like Soderstrom will probably sign an extension at some point in Boston. So interesting note there, Soderstrom can rebound after playing overseas in the SHL this past year. Maybe he can eventually be 3rd pair defenseman there for the Boston Bruins. So interesting note there. But former 1st round pick Victor Soderstrom, who spent last year over in the SHL, has gone to Boston, where maybe he can be a 3rd pair defenseman. In exchange, the Hawks get a young D prospect and a 7th round pick in this upcoming draft. So a very interesting swap there that at this point in time, I do think Boston wins, especially if Soderstrom can continue to be an NHL level defenseman. And lastly here, going over to a couple of trade rumors. We got 6 things to talk about here today. Lots of trade rumors around the NHL. It's going to be a very busy next couple of weeks, so I'll try and get my videos uploaded as fast as I can. But in today's video, we're looking at a couple of interesting things. First with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pierre LeBrun, I think it was on The Athletic. It might have been on TSN. Like, I'm not exactly sure where it was, but I saw a report that came from Pierre LeBrun saying that the Pittsburgh Penguins are the lone true seller in the NHL right now. So you got guys like Chicago, San Jose, Montreal, those teams who've been bottom dwellers for years, who want to try and add this offseason to try and get better this upcoming season. And then you've got teams like Ottawa, Columbus, the New York Rangers, Anaheim, Utah, who are trying to get to that next level and make the playoffs, or try and keep into a playoff spot. And then you've got teams like Dallas, Carolina, Florida, who are going to try and add to remain top dominant teams in the NHL. So most teams at this point in time are either going to be very small sellers, like maybe move off a couple of low-end pieces that would hurt them for this upcoming season, because this year is the McKenna draft, or try and add some pieces. But he says that the Pittsburgh Penguins are the one team that's really basically open for business. Crosby and Malkin aren't going anywhere, but it definitely sounds like we've heard Rust's name out there, we've heard Raquel's name out there, to some extent Carlson's name, Jari, Graves, guys who have 1 or 2 years left on their deal in the bottom 6, like Achari, Hayes, Heinen. Like, there's a lot of guys in the Pittsburgh Penguins we've been hearing. So it seems like the Pittsburgh Penguins are committed to at least going through some sort of a retool to try and get better. Hopefully it's during the Crosby period, so we're going to have to wait and see on that. But very interesting note there that LeBrun says that the Penguins are the one true seller team, at least at this point in time. Next, going over to Jonathan Toews. When it comes to Toews, we talked about him wanting to get back into the NHL, want to sign an extension in free agency with a new team. Apparently, according to a couple of recent reports, it sounds sounds like the Winnipeg Jets, Colorado Avalanche, Toronto Maple Leafs, and Tampa Bay Lightning all want Toews. So it'll be interesting to see exactly where Toews signs. Like Tampa, Toews isn't going to cost them too much, so getting him to be like their second or third line center would be a very smart move there. If Colorado goes after Toews to be their third line center, I think Coyle's as good as gone. And if they can sign Toews to like a $2.5 million deal for like a year or two, I think that'll be a lot better than the Charlie Coyle. If they look at Toronto, if they don't go and re-sign John Tavares, I could easily see them go after Jonathan Toews, similar type guys. I know Toews is a little bit older and he's coming off of injury and not playing for a season, but that'll be a very smart move. And then Toews and the Winnipeg Jets have been mentioned for the past couple of months since he was rumored to potentially be trying to make a comeback around the trade deadline. So it makes sense for all three of these teams, especially if the Avalanche want to move on from Coyle or Toronto Maple Leafs don't sign Tavares. So very interesting note there, but definitely does sound like Toews will wind up signing at some point in Tampa, Toronto, Colorado, Winnipeg are very likely landing spots. When it comes to the Carolina Hurricanes, James Myrtle of The Athletic was talking about them, mentions two things. One, Dmitry Orlov, their pending UFA defenseman who is just making $7 million on the cap this year, will not be back. So it definitely sounds like Orlov is not going to be returning for the Carolina Hurricanes. It sounds like there might be some interest in Burns if Burns wants to come back and play for another season, but it definitely sounds like Orlov will test the free agent market. So teams who need some defensive help, LA Kings, New York Rangers, there's probably a couple of other teams out there, Detroit, Calgary, San Jose, who could all use some more veteran help on the blue line. I think would all have some major interest. Orlov is getting older, so I wouldn't be one bit surprised if Orlov wanted to try and sign with a contender. So we're going to have to wait and see on that, but Orlov will not be back with the Carolina Hurricanes. Also, when it comes to the Hurricanes, Myrtle says that they are going to take big runs at Mitch Marner and Aaron Ekblad in free agency. This comes to me as no surprise. They need a superstar winger. We've heard them over the past couple of videos be linked to trying to go after a superstar. Marner's that guy. It sounds like they're going to offer him quite a big deal to try and get him to sign with them. So no guarantees that they will sign Marner, but it definitely seems that they're going to be in the running. And when it comes to Aaron Ekblad, like we just said, Orlov is probably leaving. So they're going to have a little bit of a hole in their top four. So going after a guy like Aaron Ekblad would make a whole bunch of sense. I said Ekblad, Provorov. I expect the Carolina Hurricanes to be in the market for those guys. So very interesting note there, but it seems like Ekblad and Marner are going to be players that the Carolina Hurricanes take a run at, while Orlov will not be back with them. When it comes to Anaheim Ducks, the Ducks apparently could be one of the teams who is a landing spot for John Tavares should he not sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So really the Ducks are trying to get better. They just acquired Chris Kreider. There's a very likely chance they're going to make a lot more moves to improve this team, make it playoff ready for next season. Tavares will be a very great fit. Have him as like your second or third line center in that team. Have him stabilize some of the younger guys. That could be a very interesting ad. Now, I still think it's very likely that the Leafs will keep Tavares and they'll work out some sort of an extension. But if Tavares really wants to sign for like $5-6 million and the Leafs aren't willing to do that, I could see Tavares at the open market. And I definitely see a fit with the Anaheim Ducks. Is it the best fit? I don't think so. I think there's a couple of other teams out there who might be a better fit for Tavares. But I could definitely see the Ducks take a stab at trying to sign him. So I'll have to wait and see on that. But keep your eye on Anaheim and potentially trying to go after John Tavares should he hit the free agent market. Next, going over to the LA Kings, according to Dan Bernstein of thefourthperiod.com, he was talking about the LA Kings and says they are a team that could very well target K'Andre Miller in the trade market should they lose Vladislav Gavrikov to free agency. You know, Gavrikov's a UFA. He's been with that team for the last 2.5 seasons, worked quite fantastically for the Los Angeles Kings, but it seems like his price tag might be a little bit rich for the LA Kings blood. Like, he's probably going to get $7 to $8 million on the open market. I don't think the LA Kings can sort of work that out to try and keep him around. So according to Bernstein, if he does wind up leaving, they could try and go and target K'Andre Miller. The Kings have a boatload of top-end prospects. They have a couple of really good NHL level players, some pretty good draft capital. So they could be in the market for a top four defenseman, and Miller would make a ton of sense. Like, if you look at K'Andre Miller, like, he would be a really solid ad, sign him to like 5 to 6 years at like $5.5-6 million. That could be a very sneaky good ad there for the LA Kings. So very interesting note there. No guarantees that it happens or anything, but I do keep on hearing some more rumblings that K'Andre Miller could go to the LA Kings if they don't bring back Gavrikov. So very interesting note there. And lastly, going over to the New York Rangers, a couple of things mentioned by Elliot Freeman, David Pagnotta. First, when it comes to David Pagnotta, he mentions, watch out for the New York Rangers potentially moving Mika Zibanejad. Zibanejad is a very fantastic top line, maybe even second line center, making $8.5 million for the next 5 seasons. But one of his best friends in Chris Kreider, closest teammates, was just traded to the Anaheim Ducks. And apparently Zibanejad was notified of this. So after Kreider was moved, Pagnotta says that it seems more likely that Zibanejad will be moved at some point. So it's no guarantees or anything. Zibanejad has no movement clause, but we've seen in New York that no movement clauses really don't mean too much to them. So it's definitely a possibility. If they can get out from under the $8.5 million AAV of Mika Zibanejad and use that money elsewhere, that might be a very smart move there for the Rangers, so long as the return is adequate. So very interesting note there, but keep your eye on the New York Rangers. I think there's a possibility and a route for Zibanejad to get traded. I'm not going to say it's a guarantee, definitely not one of the likelier trade candidates, but I wouldn't be one bit shocked if he was moved, so we'll have to wait and see on that. And Elliot Friedman mentioned on the 32 Thoughts podcast that the New York Rangers want to use the new cap space they freed up to go after an offer sheet. He says that it seems like the New York Rangers are a team who could very well use the offer sheet route, so that could be a very interesting scenario. JJ Peterka's name that Elliot Friedman mentions that they've had interest in the past, that they could try an offer sheet. Peterka's a name that we've heard a lot. The Sabres don't really want to move on from him, but Peterka's not really happy in Buffalo, and if he's not overly happy, he may not sign an extension before July 1st, which will leave him open to the potentiality of an offer sheet, which has led to some people saying that maybe Peterka could get traded at some point. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like, there's a couple of other offer sheet candidates. We mentioned Bork, we mentioned the guy like Joel Hofer. Those are lower end guys, though I'm not sure if they're guys that the Rangers want to target. They may try and go after some of the bigger fish like Rossi, Dobson, Byram, maybe take a stab at trying to sign Evan Bouchard. Like, we're going to have to wait and see on that. But it definitely sounds like the Rangers are using the cap space they freed up in Kreider, maybe moving off some more pieces to go after an offer sheet candidate. And it definitely sounds like going to Pagnotta, they could look to try and move Mika Zibanejad. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But that's all I'm going to talk for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think the Rangers move Zibanejad and go after an offer sheet candidate? Could the Kings target Keandre Miller from the Rangers? Are the Ducks the likely landing spot for Tavares? Could the Canes sign Marner, Ekblad? Are you surprised that Orlov won't be back? Who do you think winds up getting Jonathan Toews? And are you surprised by Pierre LeBrun saying that the Penguins are the one true seller at this point in time? Definitely your thoughts on all of that, plus the news updates and the signings from the past couple of days. Definitely your thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk for today. Remember to like this video, and if you're liking, subscribe below. Thank you for all your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. Don't forget to stay tuned for my June 27th, June 28th, and July 1st live streams. Also do a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so check that out. I'll link to that down in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.